Have you ever felt like you're standing at the edge of a cliff, staring into a fog so thick you can't see the ground below? That's me every single day. My name is not important, but my story might be yours. I used to wake up with a knot in my chest, a silent scream that whispered, "What if you fail? What if you never make it?" That anxiety wasn't just a shadow, it was a wall. And on the other side of that wall, I knew were all the ideas I was meant to bring to life, but I couldn't hear them, not over the noise of my own fear. I remember the mornings that felt like battles before they even began. I would sit at my desk, a blank page staring back at me, and my mind would be a storm of what ifs. What if I'm not good enough? What if my work doesn't matter? What if everyone sees the cracks I feel inside? That anxiety was a heavy curtain, muffling every whisper of creativity. I thought I was protecting myself, bracing for the worst. But really, I was just blocking out the one thing I needed most, the quiet, fragile voice of inspiration. It's funny how we treat fear like a shield when it's really just a prison. Then one rainy evening, something shifted. I was walking home, the city lights smearing into watercolor reflections on the wet pavement. I was so lost in my worry about deadlines, about expectations, that I almost missed it. A small, simple thought as clear as a single drop of rain on glass. You don't have to see the whole path, you just have to take the next step. It was the gentlest whisper, but it cut through the noise like a bell. In that moment, I realized my anxiety was a lie. It told me I had to be ready, to have all the answers, to control everything. But creativity doesn't work that way. It's a river, not a fortress. And you can't drink from a river if you're holding your breath, waiting for the perfect wave. So I started small. I stopped trying to write for an audience and started writing just for one person. Me. I would scribble down words without judging them. Let them be clumsy and raw. I would walk without a destination, let my feet carry me where they wanted. And slowly the fog began to lift. The ideas that had been hiding in the shadows, too afraid to come out because of all my worry, they started to peek through. I learned that inspiration isn't something you chase. It's something you let in. And you can't let anything in when your hands are clenched tight with fear. That's the lesson, you know. The future is a fog, yes, but that's not a curse. It's a blessing. It means you get to discover your path as you walk it. The anxiety wants you to freeze, to think you need to see the whole map before you move. But trust me, you don't. All you need is one step, just one, and then another, and one day you'll look back and realize that the fog you were so terrified of, it was never a wall, it was just a canvas. And the first brushstroke is always the hardest. But once you make it, the rest of the picture begins to reveal itself. I can still hear the sound of my own footsteps that morning. They were heavy, dragging across the wooden floor as if each step was a question I couldn't answer. I remember opening the fridge, not because I was hungry, but because I needed a moment to escape the noise in my head. The refrigerator hummed a low, steady note, and for a second I thought I could hear something else, a whisper. Maybe. But then the kettle started whistling, and I snapped back into the chaos. That's when it hit me in the middle of that ordinary morning. Anxiety isn't just a feeling, it's a frequency, and it was the only frequency I was tuned into. Core point number 1, anxiety drowns out the quiet whispers of intuition. I remember a day last spring. I was preparing a presentation, but my mind was a storm of what-ifs. Suddenly, a simple idea flickered a creative twist that could have saved me hours. But I dismissed it, too busy worrying about the audience's judgment. That idea, it was a gift wrapped in silence. But I was wearing noise, canceling headphones made of fear. The lesson: when your mind races with worry, you're tuning out the very frequencies that carry inspiration. I poured steaming water into my mug, and as the steam curled upward, I caught my own reflection in the dark window for a moment. Everything stopped outside. A car passed, its headlights sweeping across the room like a slow, deliberate brushstroke. In that flicker of light, I realized something profound. The future isn't something to be feared. It's something to be listened to, but you can't hear it if you're shouting over it with your own doubts. So what do we do when the noise gets too loud? We pause, we breathe. We remember that the best ideas don't come with a drum roll. They come as a gentle tap on the shoulder. And if we're always bracing for impact, we'll miss the touch. The next time your heart races with worry, stop. Listen for the silence beneath the storm. That's where the real conversation begins. I remember the day I realized I had been listening to the wrong channel. The room was quiet, except for the soft piano chord I played on my phone, just a tentative note to break the silence. Then the scratch of a pencil on paper like a whisper in a crowded room. I exhaled slowly, the air carrying away months of tension. That's when it hit me, the first lesson I had to learn about creativity. Fear of the future turns your brain into a broken radio. All you get is static, not signal. I spent 3 months planning a career shift. Every night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, calculating risks like a mathematician in a nightmare. I rehearsed every possible failure, the rejection emails, the empty bank account, the conversations with friends who would say, "I told you so." My mind was so full of the "what if it doesn't work" that I couldn't hear the small, persistent crackle of a new idea. It was a spare time project, something I almost dismissed as a hobby. But that project would later become my anchor, the thing that kept me grounded when everything else felt like a storm. The funny thing, that project wasn't a plan. It wasn't a spreadsheet with profit margins or a 5-year roadmap. It was a feeling, a thread of possibility that I could hold in my hand. But I was too busy trying to see the whole tapestry to notice the single golden thread I was already holding. I had to stop looking at the big picture and start feeling the texture of the moment. The rain fades. A single bird chirps outside. A lighter, more hopeful tone enters her voice. Core point number 3. Inspiration doesn't arrive by appointment. It visits when you're still, not when you're struggling to control the future. Last month, I finally let go. I stopped trying to force the universe to give me a map. I sat in silence. Just for 10 minutes, and there it was, a phrase, a melody, a direction. It wasn't a solution, it was a step. So here's my challenge to you. The next time anxiety tightens its grip, close your eyes. Listen to the gap between your thoughts. That stillness isn't empty, it's the womb of your next breakthrough. You don't need to see the whole path. Just take the next quiet step.